Good evening. This is BelGeode, and we are back with some more Microsoft Flight Simulator. And tonight, I'm going to show you another unusual, quirky bird. So this bird that we're going to be showing off is by Lionheart Creations. Now, you may recall the last time I showed a Lionheart Creations bird, it was the Quickie, the Q200, I believe it was called, and it was definitely a unique experience. I thoroughly enjoyed that bird. I've flown it a number of times, including on live streams with my good buddy Tristan, aka NovaWing24. So you can always check on his Twitch and YouTube records, and you should see a few streams where I flew with him. I did not, however, do a full review video of that aircraft at the time because, well, I hadn't really learned it yet. And it kind of fell by the wayside, so I guess I'm trying to catch up. But in a ways to kind of make up for that, tonight we're going to be taking a look at the LearAvia Learfan 2100/2200. Now, what is this bird? Well, let's take a look at it first of all. So we'll go up here, and we'll actually go to aircraft selections. That way you can see it right here. So the Learfan, as the name might indicate, is designed by Bill Lear. Yeah, the same guy who designed the Learjet. And from what I hear, he also designed automobile radios way back in the day. And as you can see, it can go relatively fast, 280 knots, and that's true airspeed, but we'll discuss that in a moment as to why it's measuring in true airspeed and not indicated. Max altitude, 40,000 feet, endurance of about 6 hours, so that tells me that it sips gas, and a range of about 1,800 nautical miles. Pretty awesome. And as you can tell from the little thumbnail picture there, it is a very unique design. It almost feels like it should be a canard, kind of along the lines of the Piaggio Avanti or the Beach Starship, but it's not. But with that having been said, it's got a lot of horsepower to it, and we're going to explore that as we get into the aircraft. Now, as far as liveries, you get a lot. You get a lot. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and we can scroll up and we can see the other 4 here. So that's 8, 9, 10, 11 liveries that you get total, including one that appears to be like an Air Force livery, which is interesting because this is actually a concept aircraft. I don't believe there are any of these flying. I don't think they got past the prototype stage. And there are a number of differences between what the real aircraft was and what this mod author vision, shall we say, of this aircraft is, including the type of engine. I believe this one uses a Pratt & Whitney turboprop or turbofan engine. So it actually does run 2 little jets that are connected by a transmission to that big 4-bladed prop in the back. It's kind of weird, kind of cool because of the fact that they're turbine engines. It's very similar to a helicopter setup because most quote-unquote modern helicopters are turbine helicopters. So basically they're kind of like jet engines that turn a big, huge crankshaft that runs the rotor. Same principle, except your rotor's horizontal. So Sergio, you're probably not going to like that. Okay. So we've set up our weight and balance here. We're running on 65% fuel. We really won't need more than that. We've got just a pilot and co-pilot, no passengers, which is okay because unfortunately passengers are not modeled in this one. You can't see them whether in VR or in 2D, which I would like more developers to do that. And I'm starting to see a paradigm where developers are starting to put human models in there. This would be great, Lionheart, if you could do that. If you could make both the co-pilot visible in VR as well as the passengers when we add their weights in there. That would be cool. And of course, as usual, we're going to be using November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo, which is my standard registration. Now, where are we going today? You can probably see Mama Africa on the center of your screen there, and if you zoom in to Mother Earth, you will see we are just off the coast of Madagascar. For reference, Seychelles is up here. We've been there before. We are going to be going to Mauritius. Mauritius is down here. So we're taking off from an island called Saint Denis. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's St. Denis, basically. The airport is Geode, which is Foxtrot Mike Echo Echo, and it is on the northern side of this island right here. Really pretty looking island. This is all default, by the way. There's no additional scenery added to this. This is just the default airports, the default lands that Asobo have given us for Microsoft Flight Simulator. And it's a pretty straightforward flight. So we'll take off to the east-southeast. Then we'll dogleg a little bit to the left. They say it should take us about 30 minutes flying time to get across the water here. And then we'll begin our approach into Mauritius. And we are going to land at Foxtrot India Mike Papa, which is in Maheborg. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but then, yeah, you're probably used to that on this channel by now. But yeah, that is the game plan. That is where we're flying. Something quick, something easy, just to kind of show off the power that this bird has and how quickly we can travel from one place to another with a backward-facing prop and what is essentially a jet engine powering it. All right, folks, let's get in the cockpit and we'll get this party started. Alrighty, folks, so welcome to Saint Denis, and as you can see, this is a stock airport. There's not a whole heck of a lot of traffic here today, but that is okay. At least we have our pushback lady, and she is ready to drive herself into our aircraft as per usual. Okay, so let's take a look at the aircraft. So as I stated, this aircraft was created by Bill Lear, and it was innovative for its time back in the 70s and the 80s, but unfortunately, I don't believe it actually made it to full production, or if it did, I really haven't seen too many of them. However, this artistic license that Lionheart Creations has done has given it the beefed up engine, you know, the Pratt & Whitney turboprop or turbofan engine, and of course improved the avionics suite. So you're not going to find any steam gauges in this bird. Everything is digital, and it is using the Asobo, I believe it's the A3X GPS system. So you can expect to see all of that. And the first thing you're going to notice here is that we've got luggage just kind of sitting here on the ramp. A lot of this stuff is controlled by switches. So you've got a switch for the door as well as the door seal. You've got a switch for the luggage to have it sit on the ground there before loading. I didn't notice any particular luggage compartments, so I would assume it's probably basically the back of the plane is where you would put this, I think. And then there's another switch that controls the covers over the engine inlets and outlets, as well as the wheel chocks. So you've got all of that stuff there. And speaking of which, let's take a look at these engines here, because that is actually a pretty cool feature. So as you can see, you've got what basically looks like a square jet engine or a rectangular jet engine on either side. There's really only one engine in there, but these are the scoops, the intakes and the exhaust that you will find for this engine. And then all of that is connected to that big, huge crankshaft that runs this four-bladed prop, this massive four-bladed prop. This looks almost as big as like the F4 Corsair, F4U Corsair. It's just incredible. It looks great. And of course, since this is a more modern aircraft, you can expect that the construction is going to be carbon fiber as was intended. And of course, the lights are all LEDs and so on and so forth. Pretty much the quality of this bird is exactly what we have come to expect from Lionheart Creations. If you're not too familiar with Lionheart, they've been doing aircraft since like the FSX days. In fact, I may even go so far as to say FS9. I remember having something from FS9. It might have been the Phenom or something, or maybe it was FSX. Maybe my memory is really not that good. All I know is anytime that they come out with an aircraft, it's guaranteed to be a crowd pleaser, and you can really tell the amount of quality that Lionheart puts into this thing. All right, let's hop inside and I will show you the cabin before we show you the office. Okay, so we are on board, and as you can see, there is the office, and as I told you, everything is all digital. It is all digital, and there's even color coding for the switches. I'll explain all of that once we actually go to starting the aircraft. But one of the first things you're going to notice here is the fact that we've got a tiny little galley, and you'll also notice that everything in here is color coordinated. So depending on what livery you have selected will determine what your interior colors are going to be. And look at these passenger seats. This is definitely not airline seating here. This is Ferrari seating is what this is. Holy crap. If you're going to ride, you ride in style with this bird. That is just awesome. And you will notice that the window shades are all up. That also is controlled by a switch in the cockpit, and we'll get to that momentarily. I haven't quite figured out the story on this backpack. I have no idea why this little backpack is just sitting here. We do know that it's a High Sierra backpack, though, so there is that. And everybody's got their own glasses. There's no liquid in it, so you don't have to worry about your passengers accidentally spilling stuff. But yeah, it is really comfy, really cozy, and everything feels to scale in VR. And I know for you VR users, you're the primary people who watch this channel, that is important to us. We want to know that if we sit in the passenger seat, like so, it's going to feel like we could realistically sit in this passenger seat. And I'm pleased to say, yeah, it's about accurate, including me almost bumping my head on top here. That's awesome. All right, let's head to the cockpit, and then I will give you a brief overview of the layout of the cockpit, and then we'll go ahead and get this bird started and get the show on the road here. The first thing that I can tell you, this little switch down here, this knob, I should say, it's not modeled. I have no idea what it does. I have no idea what it is. Couldn't tell you. Really couldn't tell you. And you're going to find that in this bird. There are a number of switches that are not modeled. For example, we've got a bank here that has 6 switches that you can't do anything with. Same for up here. None of those are inoperative. If I may offer a suggestion to Lionheart, remember in the intro of the video, I suggested that they add people models. Maybe use these switches for that. Like if you push the switch and there's weight in that particular seat, maybe it makes the model appear. That would be kind of cool, because otherwise you've got switches that serve no real purpose here. I don't know. Just a suggestion. I'm just spitballing here. You don't necessarily have to do it, but it would be nice to see. All right, so as we work our way into the cockpit, I'm going to give you a brief overview as to how everything is laid out. And to do that, I'm going to use one of the more unique features that this thing has. You'll see it says Show Help Placards. Placards, by the way, is misspelled. There's only one C. If we click that on, look at that. Have you ever seen any aircraft actually physically tell you what everything is? So let's look at everything here, and I'll read to you what it says. So this, of course, is our caution warning. Click this to stop warning alarms. I am going to tell you that the brightness on this needs to be a little bit more because I can't tell when it's on or when it's off. This is our autopilot bank here. So you've got the VS, which we're going to be using. And further to the right, these are the switches that will actually change things outside the aircraft. So we've got the luggage switch. If we click that, to its off position. Now the luggage should have gone away. And if we click this for park mode, that will get rid of the pitot covers, the chocks, all of that good jazz there. And the sunshades, if we click that to its off position, that will actually open up all the windows in the bird with the exception of the one over by the galley. So keep that in mind. All right, moving around, we're going clockwise here. So we've got inoperative switches, in case you haven't figured that they were inoperative. And of course, the switch that we just hit, there's a tablet with checklist page active and the same tablet with specs page active. You can only have one on at a time. So we can do checklist, and that gives us at a glance what you need to do in order to turn this aircraft on, and also what you would need to do in preparation for takeoff. It's a very basic thing here. So we can switch that to the specs page with the next switch, and that'll tell you your weights. It is just a placard. There is nothing dynamic about this. Like, I don't believe it will tell you how much weight you've got on board, how much fuel you've got on board, or any of that stuff. It's just at a glance all the various specs and all the various speeds that you're going to need to know in order to fly this bird successfully. And then we can turn it off by just clicking the switch again. And there we go. You need to click both of them to make sure that they're both off. All right, the prop RPM. Now, this is a very strange contraption. It's not like any other prop RPM that you've ever seen. Basically, it's just a dial, and you want to make sure that it is on full, so you turn it clockwise, or we can use the Virpil control, which is a little bit quicker, to right there. So that's maximum prop pitch. Now, the reason why this is a knob and not like one of your typical levers and whatnot is because everything is controlled automatically in this aircraft. So you don't really need to mess with the prop pitch. Just put it on 100 and the aircraft knows when to modulate the RPM. So it'll do it all for you. Environmental controls are all inoperative. This thing does have pressurization, and I would assume that also means it has oxygen. You can't really do anything with it, so there is that. Moving a little bit to the left, we've got fuel selection. So this thing has 3 fuel tanks, left wing, right wing, and center. Center, it should be noticed, is the smallest tank of the 3. However, with this fuel selector, you want to make sure you have it selected to all, which is in the lower right corner where it is right now. To the left of that, we've got our flaps, and conveniently underneath that, we've got the flap speed that we need to watch out for. There are 3 stages of flaps. All your exterior light switches are below here. And below that, we've got the TCS mini screens, which will help you for your radio channels, your nav, and so on and so forth. And we'll also add some features to like a PFD and whatnot. Your trim controls are right here. You got a nice little pitch trim wheel, and you've got your aileron and rudder trim. And then you've got your interior lights, so your cabin lights, your cockpit lights, avionics, all that good jazz that you're used to. Throttle, you know what a throttle is. I don't need to explain that. Electrics and engines are all red. All the blue ones are going to be your de-ice. Your fuel pump is yellow. And if we continue left, you'll see it says click zone to hide yoke. And then we can see the door switch and the door seal. The door seal is very important. You need to make sure that you have this done as you're taking off, or if you're planning on going over 8,000 feet, because that's what gives the pressurization to the aircraft and presumably will turn on the oxygen and whatnot. And then finally, this. I'll just let you read it for yourself. It's a nice touch. It's a really nice touch. That's all I can say about that. Earl Grey tea. Gotta love it. All right, so we'll turn off all of our placards, and we'll go ahead and hop into the pilot's seat, and then we can get this party started here. Now, one thing I will caution VR users on, there is no VR pilot position set up in this. I want to get with the mod author or the developer and see if I can tweak their cameras.cfg file, because for VR pilots, we do need a VR pilot position. Otherwise, it defaults to the 2D pilot position. Now, here's a problem with that. When it defaults to the 2D pilot position, it's actually leaning forward. We can't have that in VR. We need for it to be completely straight up. So we don't want the camera to be fixed in a leaned, hunched over position. Otherwise, it just feels weird for us. And I realize in 2D why it's done. So that way the pilot in 2D can see the GPS screens and all of that stuff. But for VR, that's exactly why we have that VR pilot entry. So for us, we're sitting naturally, straight up and down, looking straight forward, and then we can let our head do the rest. Okay, so I've waffled on enough. Let's go ahead and get this bird started. All right, so the first thing that we've done is we've turned on the external power, which is this red switch right here. And we're going to get our main master battery switch on. We'll turn on the avionics later. Right now, we just have the PFD, but the MFD will come on once we turn on the avionics. We could also set our lights, so let's get our nav lights on, which I do have on a switch on the Virpil. So there's our nav, and we'll also get our beacon lights on to indicate that we're about to start the engine. All right, now to start this thing, it is ridiculously easy. First, of course, you make sure that your parking brake is on. You make sure your fuel tank selector is set to all. And that prop knob that I told you about, you want to make sure that is full. Now, if you look down here, your condition lever, that needs to be at 50%, which is what it defaults to. So you can just leave it as it is. We're going to keep the condition lever at 50% until we're done taxiing and ready to actually take off. Throttle will keep all the way down to 0. So the manual actually doesn't really say anything about like the ignition switch or the fuel pump. So I'm not sure if they were simply forgotten or if they're not really necessary. But I'm kind of in the habit when it comes to starting any kind of turboprop to hit the starter and then hit the ignition switch. Now, once we're starting this thing, we're going to be watching the ITT, the temperature, the engine temperature. So once that gets over about 300, we're going to turn off the starter switch so it'll go back to its center position, which is where it's at right now. And that should be good for an engine start. The ignition switch I'm going to leave on only because I'm not 100% certain if I would need to turn that back off. I think typically you do leave your ignition on, however. So, with that having been said, let's go ahead and get this done. So we'll hit the starter rocker. We'll put it to its up position. And we'll go ahead and hit the ignition in a second here. So ignition switch is now on. We're waiting for the ITT to come up. You can see the props coming up.
Alpha Golf Bravo, requesting pushback.
All right, that'll be Kara.
70 Alpha Golf Bravo, pushback request accepted.
Okay, we are now over 300, so we can put the starter rocker switch back to the center. And believe it or not, folks, that's it. This engine is started. So we'll wait for our little lady to get into position here, and I'm going to go to the outside camera view. We'll turn our parking brakes off.
Ground, November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo, requesting the end of pushback.
November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo, request to end pushback received.
Ground, November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo, with golf request taxi to the active east departure.
November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo, taxi to and hold short of runway 12 via taxiway Charlie cross runway 14 Alpha. Contact tower on 118 decibel for when ready.
Taxi to and hold short runway 12 using taxiway Charlie, cross runway 14 Alpha Alpha Golf Bravo.
Seriously, lady? You put us in the grass? Come on, you can do better than that. And I actually forgot to close the door, so I had to kind of do that off camera just before the pushback lady was in position. But now that we have the door closed, which I'll remind you is this switch here, we're going to want to make sure that we have the door seal on. So we'll go ahead and turn that on right now. Little green light indicates that it is on, and we're going to get our taxi lights on. And we'll leave the strobes off for now as we go ahead and push out. One thing we do want to do, however, is we want to get our generators on and our avionics. So there we go. Otherwise, you can run out of battery charge, and that's just bad. Nobody wants to run out of battery charge. Okay, now you'll notice that our CDI has us set to nav1, and we need to set to GPS. You can do that on this little screen right here. So you see this button? We push that button, and it switches from nav1 to nav2 to GPS. So if we look back on the GPS, you can see this is where we want to be. And that's a TAWS system test doing its TAWS system things. So we're going to go ahead and turn some of these lights on here. Avionics light is already on. I'm going to keep the cockpit light off, but the pedestal light, we'll go ahead and turn that on. Galley lights we can also turn on, as well as the cabin lights. It's important to note the galley light will not come on until you have the green cabin lights knob turned on. So we'll go ahead and flip that to the up position there. So now you can see we got light in the galley. And of course, all of our passengers would have lights if we had passengers. We do not. Okay, so they told us to taxi to runway 12. Now we are going to need a little bit of throttle to push off, because remember our condition lever is still in the 50% position. So that should be fine. We'll go ahead and get our parking brakes off. And we'll give her some throttle, and we're going to need to swing out to the right. Now, as always, we do have the external camera. It will take us a little while to get to runway 12. So, of course, we're going to go to the external camera view. And that way, we can taxi in peace. Let me just make this turn here really quick. I have to admit, I don't know much about Saint Denis, so I really can't tell you too much about the island. But I do know that with all of this being default, Asobo really did a good job on this. I know that a lot of people get on Asobo's case because every time they come out with a world update, it seems like it's all Europe or USA and stuff like that, and they tend to forget places like Africa or South America or even Asia for that matter, with the exception of Japan. But I gotta say, at least on these small islands here, they did a really good job. I'm actually kind of surprised that they didn't do anything for Seychelles, and we had to wait for an add-on in order to take a good look at Seychelles, which you've seen those videos by now, hopefully. All right, as I said, it's going to take us a little while to get where we need to go, so let's quickly go to the external static camera. Okay, this should be our hold short.
Tower November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo, ready at runway 12 East departure.
I'm going to get our lights on while Kara's doing her thing.
70 Alpha Golf Bravo altimeter, tree 0.09er wind 119er at 20. Departure to the east approved. Cleared for takeoff runway 12.
Okay, so we've got the fuel pump on.
12 Alpha Golf Bravo.
Got our pitot heat on. Got all of our lights on. We can hear the warning bell, which we can silence with that, but that's just because I've got the parking brakes on. One thing we do need to do is put our flaps to position 1. And now we'll get the parking brakes off and we'll do our back taxi. Oh, our cruise altitude for this hop is going to be 12,000 feet. So let's go ahead and set that now while I'm thinking about it. It does take a little while for the knob to move. That's pretty much standard. We're used to that. The other thing I like is that the Hobbs meter is actually moving as well too. So it is keeping track of how many hours we're putting in this thing. I promise I don't have 76 hours in this. It starts with a set amount of hours already in there. So yeah, it's like it's already been tested and ready for us. Okay, So we're going to need to back taxi a little bit to get to the proper runway. So let's zoom in this map somewhat. And you can see our runways there. So we're just at runway 14. Runway 12 is this one here. So we're going to need to make a hard left, and then we'll go ahead and turn around at the hold short for runway 12. All right. So with that having been done, it's going to take us a couple of minutes to get into position. So I'm going to cut the video here, and we'll pick it up once we get in position. Okay, so we are finally at the runway's edge. So I'm just going to put the brakes on here. We should not move forward because I have the condition lever to half. So we're going to need to put that to full. It just takes one touch and it will move itself to full. So that's all we need to do. So now we are pretty much set for takeoff. And this bird is kind of quirky when it comes to takeoff. Because of the fact that the prop and the engine are just so high up, it tends to have a nose down tendency. So if you try to pull back too much on the stick, well, not only do you run the risk of a tail strike, which is why that one piece of the tail is pointing down and has a skid at the very bottom of it, but you also have an issue where because of the speed and because of the angle of the engine, it may keep the nose on the ground. So you actually have to ease back the pressure a little bit, and that will get your nose off the ground. You'll see this thing leaps into the air. Okay, so with that having been said, let's go ahead and get this done. Brakes down, throttles up. And we're going to put the throttles no higher than 75%. That is all the power we need to take off. You don't want to do a full power takeoff with this thing. Everything's good. Check the ITT, check the prop, looks good. Okay, brakes off, and we are rolling. 95 knots is what we want to shoot for our rotate. Trim to neutral, you don't need to mess with the trim. And let's see, we are at 50. We've got plenty of runway, so 75% power is really all we need here. Now we can push it up a little bit to about 85 or 90% power, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it unless, of course, you're on a really short runway. This thing has been described as like a dragster, so obviously turning is going to be a bit of an issue if you happen to need to correct while you're on your takeoff run. So it's better to keep the power a little bit lower than to try and force the issue by putting it high and then try to compensate. And you see what I mean? We just leapt off the ground right around 95. Perfect. Let's go back to the outside view and we'll get the gear up and the flaps up.
Alpha Golf Bravo, continue for east departure.
Tower, November 70, Alpha Golf, Bravo, continue for east departure.
So yeah, not too bad, huh? Pretty sprightly takeoff. Now this thing can be a rocket ship, so let's just make sure everything is cleaned up. We got our flaps up, we got our gear up, everything's looking good there. And I'm actually going to increase our power output now to 90% throttle, and watch how quickly we can climb like this. Look at that. all of a sudden we are a literal rocket ship. We're at 2,400 feet per minute. I'm going to turn on the autopilot right now just to kind of keep us a little bit stable. So right there, main autopilot is on. That should hold our pitch, and then we'll get the nav hold on. And while I'm at it, I'll also scroll this out a bit. So there's our first waypoint, which is Urbis.
Alpha Golf Bravo, leaving my airspace frequency change approved.
We'll let Kara and them do their thing.
Tower, November 70, Alpha Golf, Bravo frequency change.
And I'm going to check out the scenery.
November 70, Alpha Golf Bravo is type 4 miles east of Gillett, 2,400 feet. Request flight following.
November 70, Alpha Golf Bravo approach. Squawk 5626.
Squawk 5626 Alpha Golf Bravo.
Okay, she's got it.
Alpha Golf Bravo radar contact 5 miles east of Gillett, 3,500 feet. Altimeter 30.09.
All right, altimeter is correct.
Roger, Alpha Golf Bravo.
Okay, so it looks like everything is pretty much set to go here. So we are getting on course and we're heading to Urbis. We're climbing at a rate of 2,800 feet per minute and we're holding stable at about 135 knots. Now, real important to note as far as the speed. You'll recall on the opening when we were on the world map, I actually told you that this thing uses the true airspeed as opposed to the indicated airspeed. So if you look, our indicated airspeed says about 134, 135 knots. However, our true airspeed says 152. And even if we look at the very top of the GPS in purple, you'll see the ground speed says about 147. So, you know, with wind influence and everything, we can expect that to be the case. When we're in cruise, we always go by true airspeed. So we actually will not be paying much attention to that 134. Instead, we'll be paying attention to the 153. And you'll see that this thing gets considerably higher. All right, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and activate the VS, and we will set ourselves for a more moderate climb out. We'll go to about 1,200 feet per minute. That should be fine. Now, be very careful with your speed tape. Once you get past 175, you're in the red zone, so you're going to want to pull the power back. And you can see we're still at 90% power, so I am going to do that right now, and that will, of course, bring our speed tape back down because of the angle that we're at. But our cruise, like I said, is going to be about 12,000 feet. So once we reach there, everything should level out. We're no longer going to pay attention to what it says on the actual speed tape, provided, of course, it stays out of the red line. And we're just going to pay attention to the true airspeed from here on out. And you know what? I'm thinking maybe I should lower that feet per minute there. So let's put it at about 900 feet per minute. That should keep us out of the white arc, I think. Maybe not. Either way, we're doing good. We should get up to 12,000 in no time. So that means we can go back to the outside view and I can show you some of the nifty little external cameras that come with this thing. Okay, so yeah, this thing is usually used to cruising over 30,000 feet, so we're pressurized, we're good, we're having all kinds of fun here. And as you can see from our GPS up at the top, the next waypoint is Avapu, which is where we're going to want to do our descent into Mauritius. It is about 80 nautical miles away, so roughly about 27 minutes, probably less than that because of the fact that we're gaining speed since we're coming down a little bit. Okay, but 12.4 is what we're looking for our cruise, since it obviously wants to fly at that altitude instead of at 12,000. So let's check through everything and make sure everything is good. Forgot to turn off my landing and taxi lights. You need those off because the gear is in. We can actually turn off the fuel pump now. I think we should be good. Ignition, I'm going to go ahead and leave that on. Just call me crazy on that, but I have a funny feeling like the ignition should be on at all times when the plane is active. But that's just me. Okay, so now that we're in cruise, how about we go into the back of the aircraft and we'll just chit-chat a little bit about life and the channel and all of that good jazz. So Kara, it is your plane. And we're going to slowly work our way back here. I always like the seat on the back left. That is like my favorite seat. So here it is. And I do notice that there is no actual bathroom in this. That is the bulkhead that is separating the cabin from where the engine is. There is no bathroom on this thing. All we got are these little, I'm assuming those are like drawers or something. They're really skinny looking drawers. And then of course this mysterious backpack. Yeah. I have no idea what's in the backpack. None. All right, but now that we're at cruise, we can just chill and cross the waters until we get to Mauritius. And first off, I would like to apologize to you all. A little apology. Kind of sorry, kind of not sorry. You haven't seen that many flight sim videos on the channel. Why? I owe you an explanation. Well, first and foremost, we're still running Sim Update 9, World Update 10 on this particular version of Microsoft Flight Simulator. We are waiting for Sim Update 10. It should come out shortly after this video goes live, probably in about 2 more weeks. Sim Update 10 is in beta, and even though a number of my VR compatriots are currently testing it, I have opted not to test it because I don't want to go through all the various hassle of dealing with bugs and, you know, spending time to do the feedback and all of that kind of good jazz there. So we'll wait until it actually comes out. But from what I'm hearing so far from those who are beta testing, at least for VR users, it is a night and day difference in performance. That I'm looking forward to, because you may have noticed that in some portions of the outside cameras of this video, it's been a little bit on the stuttery side. And I know a lot of that is basically the Oculus mirror itself, notorious for doing that, and Oculus still has yet to give us a fix for it. But some of that is actually Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I can see it in the headset. So apologies if portions of the video don't look as great as other portions of the video, but what can I say? It is what it is. Now, the other thing that I'm waiting for is X-Plane 12 beta. You may have noticed, if you're a longtime viewer of the channel, you really haven't seen any X-Plane videos for quite some time. I've put a moratorium on X-Plane 11. We're done with that series as far as I am concerned, and we will pick it up with X-Plane 12, which is supposed to come out within 30 days. Actually, that is probably also 2 more weeks from now, from the time that I'm recording this. So once we get X-Plane 12 beta, of course, I will be hopping in that, so you can expect to see more X-Plane videos coming out from me. And of course, we will alternate between X-Plane 12 and Microsoft Flight Sim. Don't forget about DCS. I will definitely never forget about DCS. There is a Tomcat mission that I've been working on for the last few months. Haven't been able to get it to work properly because the AI, something got messed up with the AI, and I have no idea what it is. And I even went as far as asking Nick from Heatblur, because if you follow the Air Combat Sim podcast put on by Baltic Dragon, you will know that I and Baltic Dragon interviewed Nick from Heatblur. So that was one of the things that I asked him off the record what was going on with the AI, and it's something that they are aware of and they are working on, but I cannot publish my Tomcat video until the AI is actually doing what the AI is supposed to do. So unfortunately, DCS is on hold. I know I could do other aircraft. For example, I could show you the Mirage F1, which I did purchase. I don't have the time to learn a new jet right now. So I purchased it. It's going to sit in the hangar for a while. The next DCS video should be the Tomcat video, unless, of course, I decide to do something else like an Apache video or something like that. I do like the Apache, and I have been learning that. I do kind of want to get back into the Hind as well. The Hind is great. Aerofly FS4. No doubt, if you've been watching the goings on in the flight sim world, you will know that Aerofly FS2 has now morphed into Aerofly FS4. From what a lot of people are saying, there doesn't appear to be much changes, at least graphically, with the sim.
Mauritius Center on 129.3. Good day.
Can you handle that, please,
Enter
Kara?
Revo Center, November 70, Alpha Golf Bravo.
Thank you.
Request
I appreciate
clearance
you.
to transition Charlie airspace. November 70, Alpha Golf Bravo.
We'll wait till they finish.
Revo Center. Cleared through the Charlie airspace. Cleared through Charlie airspace, Alpha Golf Bravo.
Love the little static wicks on the wings there. That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Anyway, as I was saying, Aerofly FS4 is now a thing. Graphically, it doesn't look like much has really changed from Aerofly FS2. I do intend to do a first look, but I'm going to need to set up my Virpil controls with Aerofly FS4. I'm going to need to check the VR settings to see what's changed, and of course, I will need to go through the whole list of new additions to Aerofly that I will need to show you in subsequent videos. So I don't have an ETA just yet as to when that's happening, except to say soon. Trademark sign. And then, of course, for those of you who have been watching the channel over the last few weeks, you will notice that I have been doing Skyrim VR. For those of you who don't like Skyrim VR, I hate to say it, Skyrim VR is going to continue to be a thing. I have recorded all of those episodes in advance. There are about 20 episodes of the Republic of Maslea adventure playthrough that we're doing. We're only up to episode 5 as of the time of this recording, so you're going to see that every single Sunday. So all I can tell you is if you're not into Skyrim VR, or if for some strange reason you don't like big busted redheads running around with me, don't watch. That's all I can really say. Don't watch. And I also put up an Elder Scrolls in VR, Elder Scrolls Online VR video yesterday, and that seems to be getting some views as well. However, I'm on the fence as to whether or not I want to do another series. I'm having fun playing Elder Scrolls Online. I'm not sure if it really has much of a place on the channel, which is ironic since this channel actually started with an Elder Scrolls Online video back when it was in beta. So that's pretty much everything that's going on. I know I got a lot of planes to go through for Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'll be honest with you folks, I'm going to start getting picky on what I choose to show you in Microsoft Flight Simulator, because there are a bunch of different aircraft that have been coming out. Not all of them are exactly my cup of tea. So for example, airliners, you should know already if you are subscribed to this channel. If you're looking for airliners, you will not find it on this channel. It's just not happening. But any other type of aircraft, you definitely will. Once we get helicopters, of course, I'll be delving in full force with the helicopters and all of that good jazz. All the unusual birds you will more than likely end up seeing on this channel, much like this bird that we're in right now. I love the unusual stuff, so that'll always have a place in my heart. I wanted to do a video for Oshkosh. However, the current 2022 Oshkosh scenery that Pilot Edge put out, they were a little bit deceitful with it. They said that if you sign up and get like the free trial, then you can download the scenery for Oshkosh 2022. Well, when I went to download the scenery for Oshkosh 2022, it said, sorry, we changed our mind and now you have to buy a subscription before you can download it. And I don't really use Pilot Edge. I barely use the ATC in the sim by default. while I wanted to showcase Oshkosh, there's no way in hell that I was going to pay a subscription to basically download the updated Oshkosh scenery. So, sorry, Pilot Edge, not this year. You get no showcase this year. Meh, I'm sure you're not losing sleep over it. But yeah, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So I wanted to get that out there. Yeah, that's all we'll say about that. Okay, we should be pretty close to our top of descent here, so I think I've yacked on enough. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the outside view, we'll do some more of the fancy cinematics, and when we come back in, we will be in the pilot's seat and ready to start coming down, hopefully. An interesting little tidbit of information, even though we do have a full anti-icing suite on this thing, we have no windshield wipers. So if it were raining, do you see those funky looking ducts on the front there? Those are actually heater/blowers, and that's what they use to clean off the canopy. It's a neat little innovative system, and you actually don't need any moving parts at all, so no wiper blades needed. Pretty cool stuff. All right, let me do this. I want to pop up our flight plan. So let's see, we have this set to that. I want it set to FPL, active flight plan. Okay, there we go. And we'll see how far away we are from everything. So Avapu is the waypoint that we're headed to right now. These numbers appear to be off. It is definitely not 35 miles from Urbis to Avapu. It was like 80 something miles, and you can see we've got about 34 left. But I don't think it's counting down. I think that's supposed to be the total mileage, and it's wrong. There's something definitely wrong with that. But it says we should be at about 4,900 feet. When we reach Bigra, we should be at 2350, so that means our approach altitude should be about 2350. And I'm thinking what we're going to do is once we get to about 30 miles out, you can see we're at 33 right now, we'll go ahead and begin our descent, and hopefully on the way down she will behave herself and not bust through our altitude. But I'm thinking we need to set her to about 2,400 or maybe even 23 or 2,200. So I'm going to change our altitude setting now. Go ahead and bring it down. Oh, I hate when it does that. I need to assign a knob on the Virpil to my altitude bug. That would make life a ton easier than trying to use the mouse. I get a lot of people asking me, well, Bell, how can you actually see what you're doing in VR, considering the fact that with VR you can't see your keyboard and your mouse? Well, here's the thing, folks. You're familiar with the concept of muscle memory, right? Now, the idea behind muscle memory, it's a lot easier than you think. If you know how to drive a car, you're using muscle memory. Do you have to look at where your gear shifter is if you're driving a standard, or do you need your feet to actually feel around for where the pedals are? You just instinctively know where all of that stuff is. And the same if you're a musician. If you're a musician who plays guitar, piano, or any instrument for that matter, a lot of the times you're not looking at your instrument when you're playing. You're just playing. It's like your fingers and your legs know magically where they need to go. That's muscle memory. VR is no different. Because I use the Virtual HOTAS system, I know when I put my hand down in a certain position, it's going to hit the throttle. I know that below the throttle, there's going to be the 3 switches for the landing gear, the flaps, and speed brakes. By the way, this does not have speed brakes or spoilers. Just get that out of the way right now. So yeah, slowing down is going to be interesting. And I know where all my buttons and switches are. Now, the stuff on the very far end, sometimes I do have to kind of like feel around, but it's relatively easy because of the way that Virtual has laid everything out. I know which banks of switches are which, so it's rare that I will actually hit the wrong switch. And the same thing with the mouse. My mouse never moves. It's always on my mouse pad. It's always just inside my F15 joystick that I'm currently using to fly this thing. So if I put my hand forward and slightly to the left of the joystick, I know the mouse is going to be there. And of course, I can move the mouse cursor around. So it's really easy to remember that kind of stuff. And honestly, you don't miss the keyboard since you never really had to use the keyboard anyway if you're using actual controllers like a HOTAS system or yoke and throttle with pedals and so on and so forth. You really don't need to worry about the keyboard. Now, the other option that you have is you can use the touch controllers, whether it be the Oculus touch controllers or any of the other stuff. However, that's not a concern for me because of the fact that I've got the Virtual system, so I never actually use the Oculus touch controllers. Okay, we're 23 miles out, so we're going to need to make a sprightly descent here, so we'll hit the VS, and that'll get our altitude select on, and we will go ahead and drop ourselves down to about 1,200 feet per minute descent. And since we know that the engine speed is going to go up, we got to pull the throttle most of the way back. So we're just about 150 right now, so I'm going to keep us roughly between 140 and 150 for this descent. It's going to happen pretty quickly, and you can see the island directly ahead. It is covered by clouds, but it doesn't appear to be any inclement weather. It just looks to be cloudy, partly cloudy, I guess is what we would say here. And look at the ocean. That's awesome. I believe that is what, the Indian Ocean? Yeah, that should be the Indian Ocean. Incidentally, all of these little circuit breakers here, I don't believe any of them work, or at least I haven't been able to get any of them to click, so there is that. We haven't gotten our barometer yet for a while, so I'm not quite sure what's going on with that. But once we get to about 10 miles out from this waypoint, I will have Kara switch over and contact the airport itself, and that should give us a proper barometric reading. Now, real quick, as far as coming down, I am in the habit of turning the fuel pump back on. Ignition, of course, is always on, and starter switch is in the center. We don't need to do anything with that. Taxi and landing lights will come on once we turn the gear out. So once the landing gear is down, we'll go ahead and get all of that lighting taken care of. Landing this thing is going to be really easy, but remember, she loves to fly, so she can get floaty. But if you've got her trimmed up properly and you've got like flaps 1 as well as your gear down, you will find that she is really easy to bring down. Be advised though, remember how high up that engine is, so there is a potential that this thing could get nose heavy, so you're going to want to trim up a little bit just to kind of compensate for it. That way you can be on speed. As far as our flap speeds, we can take a look here. You can see it says 170, knots indicated speed is our flap limit for flaps 1. And then we've got 140 and 125 respectively for stages 2 and 3. Incidentally, our landing gear is also 170. You want to make sure that you are not above that speed before you drop your gear. All right, it also says depressurize before landing. So once we get below 8,000 feet, which we're getting kind of close to that, we'll go ahead and hit that door seal button, which will depressurize it. That always worries me. I got to be honest with you. That kind of worries me because you would think if the door seal goes off, wouldn't that... I don't even want to think about it. I'm just having visions of like the door popping open and all of my passengers flying out. Thankfully, it's just me and Kara and we're buckled up, so we don't have to worry about it. But yeah, we're just about at 8,000 now. I think I'll wait till we get to about 4,000, or maybe once we get to our approach altitude, which I've set for 2,000, then we'll go ahead and depressurize, and that should be fine. All right, so while we're coming down, let's quickly go back to the outside view as we approach the lovely island of Mauritius. Man, look at those clouds. That's just awesome. Nice little puffy clouds. Can't wait to see what they look like in Sim Update 10 because right now in VR with Sim Update 9, they are still pretty pixelated if you get close to them. Just one of those things that I really wish that Asobo and Microsoft would fix. The other, of course, is still giving us VR users the one-eye monitor mirror. So that way, what we see on our monitor looks exactly like what you are seeing in this YouTube video without the need for us having to use programs like Oculus Mirror, which, of course, does eat up some resources and usually makes my videos come out a little bit stuttery, more stuttery than they would be if you just record directly from the sim. But we need that, and it's not just the YouTubers and streamers that need stuff like that, but pretty much anyone who has a need to show what is going on in the VR headset without having both eyes on the screen. So like instructors, for example, could use stuff like this, or just simply showing your family. Your family doesn't want to see two screens. They want to see one. They want to see a movie, basically. You want to put it up on your big screen TV and then be able to look around and your family can see that and go, ooh, ah. We need the one-eye monitor view. So if it's not up on the Microsoft forums lately, put it back up there, folks. Please. It's going to benefit everybody in the long run. Well, everybody that would utilize one screen monitor mirror or one eye. All right, we're going to pull the power back as we bring ourselves down. I just realized we've got a mountain there, so you know what? I'm going to set us up for 2,500 feet, and hopefully it'll catch it this time. I'm watching you, bird. I'm watching you. Then we're going to go ahead and get our flaps down. Kara, I need you to do something. Contact the airport for me and tell them that we are coming in to land. Nearest airport, Mauritius International.
Mauritius Tower, November 70 Alpha Golf Bravo, is 21 miles west, 2,500 feet with Alpha to land.
Okay, let's go ahead and get flaps 1. Ooh, 3011, wow.
Fly straight in runway 14 Alpha Golf Bravo.
Excellent. Just the kind of approach that I like. We do have that hill in the way, and I am not 100% certain that we are going to need to clear that because I've also got clouds in my way here. But look at the villages and everything. That is pretty awesome looking stuff. I'm going to trim us up here a little bit, or at least see if it will allow me to trim us up. Come on, baby. Catch that 2500, please. Thank you. That would be great. Would really appreciate if you did. But yeah, look at that. Now, I do not have photogrammetry on, so what you're looking at is just the, I guess, default buildings that Microsoft Flight Simulator puts in there. We do need to go over Bigra Waypoint, and there should be a lake just to the right of it. I really hope that we are high enough to do so. You know, those clouds looked much better when we were above them. That's all I can really say. Now, for approach, you want to be around 95, 100. You don't really need to go much faster than that. When we drop flaps 2, we'll also drop the gear. And then, of course, we'll turn our landing lights on. But I want to make sure that we get to Bigra and line up for runway 14 before we do that, because it's going to happen pretty quickly here. All right, are we at 2500 now? Yes, we are. Hallelujah. Love it. Let's quickly go back to the outside view so that way I can gauge from the underside camera as to how close we are to these mountains. Okay, we're looking good as far as that goes. So I'm going to keep us here at 2,500 feet, and it looks like we should pass over these hills nicely. Once we make the turn and line up, I'll go ahead and drop flaps 2 and drop the gear. We'll turn on the landing lights, and we'll get ready to come in. So our speed is roughly around 99. We can play with the throttle a little bit just to kind of keep it around 95. We also need to pay close attention to our radar altimeter. It says 1844 right now, and that is, of course, dropping rapidly. Yeah, we are going to skirt over the top of these trees here. I gotta say, for default, this is a really beautiful island. I've never been here, and that's one of the reasons why I chose to fly here today, was because I've never explored this area. I'm telling you folks, Africa is probably one of the best continents that you can fly over because there's such a variety of terrain, and just these little islands off the coast of Africa here, every single one of them feels unique and different. That is too cool. That is too cool. And again, I don't know much about Mauritius at all, so I really couldn't tell you any facts and figures about it. I just know that this does look like a place that I would love to visit in real life. Look at that gully in there. Almost looks like a crater. That's just awesome. See, this, folks, is exactly why I keep coming back to Microsoft Flight Simulator. It's scenery like this that makes it worth it. And while I know X-Plane 12 will not be exactly like that, I'm hoping there will be enough of an improvement in X-Plane 12 to make that a beautiful thing as well. I am aware that there's an awful lot of what my friend Sergio from helisimmer.com calls tribalism. You know, us versus them, X-Plane versus Microsoft Flight Simulator. Remember, folks, there's a place for both sims. You don't have to pick one over the other. You can do both. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And the community is big enough to support both sims. And I seem to be having a little bit of stuttering freezing here. I'm really hoping I don't crash the desktop because that would be very bad. Let's go back to the outside view, and you know what? We'll go ahead and get our gear down. Well, you know what? No, we'll hold off on getting the gear down, but we will get flaps to 2. So we'll put that down.
Landing gear. Landing gear.
Well, it looks like she wants the landing gear anyway, so landing gear it is. Now with the landing gear down, what I've also done is I've also put our throttle back up to about 75%, so that will keep us roughly around 90 knots. On approach, we're going to be between 85 and 75. Stall speed with full flaps is 70. However, we should be good on flaps 2 instead of going all the way to full flaps. All right, so it's just about ready to line us up, and once it does, we will go ahead and get the autopilot off and bring this sucker in. Oh, let me get my landing lights on while I'm thinking about it. So there we go, all 3 at once, landing and taxi. Everything's looking good. Let's just check through everything here. So we've got ignition still on, fuel pump is on, pitot heat is on. Let's go ahead and undo the door seal. So that is fine. We are no longer pressurized. And we should be heading directly for the airport. However, I cannot see it because there is a cloud in the way. But other than that, it looks like everything else is pretty much set to go. So we just need to see the airport and make sure we can come in. Now, I'm not doing all of the ILS approach or putting on approach mode on the autopilot system. We're just going to hand fly it and bring it in, basically. So once I have confirmed visual on the runway, I will take this thing off autopilot and we'll bring her in. But first we need to see the runway. So let's go once again back to the outside view. Okay, it says that we're about 15 miles range, so we definitely should be able to see the airport from here. I am thinking now is probably a good time to take this sucker off of autopilot, since I know that we are properly lined up here. And is that our airport? That most certainly is. Okay, autopilot off. We're going to pull the power back here. Remember, we don't want to go below 70, but we do want to start our good descent here. I don't see any VASI or PAPI lights, so that may be an issue. But yes, it does look like we are a little bit high there. And Kara, listen out for the tower. That is your job. You need to make sure that they understand we're coming in. As you can see, she's dropping like a rock.
Bravo, 1097 at 1 tree. Cleared to land runway 14.
Kara?
Clear to land runway 14 Alpha Golf Bravo.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so we are ready to go. We're still dropping like a rock. We're at 1,100 feet per minute, so we can trim ourselves up a little bit. And then, of course, pull the power back. I do hear the outer marker beacon, so this thing actually does have an ILS approach. We probably could have programmed that in. And we are drifting a little bit, so a little bit of crabby action here going on. But yeah, we're looking good. We're looking good. Let's keep that power stable around 78, and that should bring us in nice and easy. All right, I know I keep going to the outside view, but you know I like to put a little caption up that tells you what airport it is we're coming into. So let's do that really quick, and then we'll come in and hand fly her in. Okay, it looks like we're on glide slope, so again, I am going to manipulate the power and a little bit of trim just to make sure we stay around 77-ish, well, 77, 78. And that will allow us to come in nice and easy. We'll get a good flare going, and we would just roll out, and that will be it. So I sincerely hope that you have enjoyed this full-on review of the Lionheart Creations aircraft, the LearAvia 2200, the Learfan, as it is affectionately known. One thing I will mention to the developer, one of your external cameras is actually inside the wing. I'll show it to you once we land and we're parked at the airport there. I don't want to do that while we're on approach. But yeah, that needs fixing. And of course, you also need to fix the VR pilot position. If you don't know how to do that, that is fine. Just ask me. I'll be more than happy to do it for you and send you the fixed cameras.cfg file. So just reach out to me, or I'll reach out to you. You never know. All right, but here we go, folks. Strap yourselves in. We are about to land at Mauritius International. And I can never get it on the center line, like ever. You notice that with my videos? I think there's been a handful of times where I've actually landed on the center line, but we're going to try it this time. So power all the way back, a little bit of flare, and we'll just let her drop. Nice and easy. Okay, nose wheels down, so we can do some steering action here. And really, you don't even need brakes on this thing. I know this thing has no air brakes, and it definitely has no, spoilers on the wings or anything like that. You don't need any of that. You really don't. This thing will come to a stop in due course. All we need to do is maybe just tap on the wheel brakes. But other than that, we are absolutely fine. All we need is a turnoff. Here is our turnoff. Speak of the devil. Okay, so let's go ahead and get the flaps all the way up. Very nice. Such a joy to fly. The flight model in this thing is believable. And remember, since this is a concept aircraft, we don't have too much to go on as far as how it would fly in real life. But to me, it really does feel like something you could fly in real life. Okay, Kara.
118.1 for Alpha Golf Bravo.
We're totally not going to 118.1. But as long as it makes them happy, we'll go ahead and taxi and park next to that aircraft, which I think might be one of the default porters. I think. There's something wrong with the models on that. Pieces of it tend to disappear, which is kind of odd. All right, but here we are in Mauritius. Nice, quick, easy flight. I definitely would recommend that you fly this area of the world. There is just so much to see. And surprisingly, Asobo did a pretty decent job doing a rendition of it, considering the fact that this area has not had any kind of world update at all. I think we'll pull up in front of the cart lady there, or the pushback tug lady. Want to be a little bit away from her, so right about here should be fine. We'll turn in. There we go. Nice and easy, and we'll come to a full stop. Parking brakes on. Okay, let's start turning things off, starting with, caution and warning. Fuel pump off, and we want our landing lights off, taxi lights off, strobes off. We can probably turn the beacon off since we're going to turn the engine off momentarily. The prop pitch we can put back down to its lowest possible setting. So remember, that's just a dial, and you really don't even need to touch it. It's either 0 or 100. That's all you need to know about this little prop pitch knob. Condition lever we can also pull back, and I will do that manually if I can. There we go. Put that to 50%. When we put it to 0, of course, the engines will shut off, so that'll be fine. Turn off the avionics, and we can actually start connecting the ground power from now. So we'll go ahead and do that. And I will kill the ignition momentarily. But before I do that, I do want to quickly go to the external camera that's bad so that the developer can see it, assuming, of course, he's watching. Okay, Lionheart Creations, this is the bad camera here. You can see we are inside the wing. In your cameras.cfg, this is the last of the external cameras. So you can see we're actually inside. And if I sit back down normally, yeah, something's wrong. I'm not sure if this is supposed to be above the wing or below the wing, but that's a problem. That is a problem. Most people might not notice it because I don't think most people use the external static cameras. I do, however, since I do these review videos and showcase videos. So yeah, if you could fix that, please, or if you want, I can fix it for you. Okay, so the power is off, and we'll go ahead and turn that off again. We can kill our generator, and we can even turn off the master battery. However, I should open the doors. That would be great, wouldn't it? We'll go ahead and get the luggage out. And park mode, we'll leave park mode off for now, but we will close our window shades. And that, folks, is just about it. So thank you, as always, for watching. This has been BelGeode. I have been flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Technically, this is World Update 10. We are not quite at Sim Update 10 just yet. That should be coming in another couple of weeks or so. So at that point in time, of course, I will do videos in Sim Update 10, and hopefully we'll have a big difference in the performance in VR, so that way the videos can be not as stuttery as they have been. I will remind you the aircraft we've been showing off has been Lionheart Creations, the LearAvia Learfan, basically, the LearAvia 2200, which is a concept plane based on a prototype plane designed by Bill Lear, the father of the Learjet, and also apparently automotive radio too. And the link will be in the video description below. You can get it in the marketplace. I would recommend that you pick it up there. Nice and easy. And of course, the scenery that we've been looking at is all default. So I'm going to get out of the aircraft here. And I will remind you, as always, if you enjoy what you've seen, please feel free to give me a like. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. And when we return, we will be in another part of the world looking at another BizJet aircraft. And that is all I will say about that. It's going to be good. All righty, folks, I will catch you later. Ciao.